I think I got it running live from my Facebook now, Cassius.
Facebook? Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, it's not showing up on the YouTube page, but oh yeah, I just got a tag on Facebook, so it looks like we're rocking.
yeah, I think so.
Cool.
All
I'll
right,
share this real
cool,
quick.
great. Here we go. Great, good, grand. All right,
Tremendous.
perfect. That's a nice little studio setup you got there, bud.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it's I figured I'd put something up behind me just to spice it up a little bit. You
Right,
know,
right. You
it's
can't go
worth it.
wrong with Kiss and Joey Diaz and Peter Griffin.
Can't complain, man. Yeah, the little custom Seth MacFarlane piece. Never hurt anybody.
Yeah, so that's done. That's autographed by Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, so the autograph is like custom to me, and it says I think 108 out of 300. So he just did 300 of the drawings, but the autograph is personalized. So
That's really cool, man. That's
oh,
really
thanks, G.
cool. How old are
Yeah,
you now,
dude.
Cassius? You started doing this when you were what, like 12?
I started doing it when I was like, yeah, I was like almost 10 type of thing, man. I'm 21 now, so yeah, I've been in
Damn.
it for the long haul, for sure, dude. What about you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just started not too long ago. I think I did my first one like last April, and then I took a long
Okay.
hiatus because I didn't really have anywhere to do them. And then I met this guy EK with FXBG Public Radio, and he had this nice setup, and he was offering me fairly cheap, you know what I mean, for time. Sorry, my camera's here, but your face is here, so
No,
that's
it's
why I'm.
cool. It's like documentary style. You're looking, the other way, and we're just getting that take.
Yeah, right. But I started it back up again in like probably about November.
Nice. Okay.
I
So
started
you
and
just
I've been
been going for it.
consistent. Yeah. And I've been consistent since then. I've been trying to go every week, at least put one out every week.
Yeah, dude. Definitely. At least once a week is the key. Like, it's really tough to do it daily. Like, I mean, the people who do it daily usually have like a fucking hired crew and like a studio type thing, like Adam Carolla, unless you just really have the luxury where that's like you can put your time into just that. But even weekly, it takes a lot of time. I don't know how
Right.
long it takes for you, but for me, at least, it does.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's a lot more that goes into it than people realize. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I want to make sure that I'm on my game a little bit when I go to record. I don't want to be half-assed, you know?
Definitely, man. Yeah, I always try to get myself into a certain space before I go on. Um, just basic stuff. But it's also cool, I guess, when you can just catch the spur of the moment, natural reactions too. I also like that stuff, and I know you do a lot of that stuff. Like from what I've seen on Facebook, when you go on, it seems to be very conversational.
Yeah, that's how I like it to be. I want to keep it as natural as possible. Now, there's definitely times where somebody comes on and I'm like, all right, I want to talk to them about these certain things.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I like to just keep it like a conversation.
Definitely.
Like I did the Swapcast with Freddie Correa,
Mhm.
and we've never really talked before that much. So it was just like a getting to know each other phone call for an hour, and
That's cool.
it turned out to be a great podcast.
Do you meet a lot of people from the church group and then like start friendships with them outside of the group?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
same here,
Um,
dude.
I don't know. We just all seem to connect and click already. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So it almost seems pointless not to do that.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's like if you're church approved, you're good people. Like I don't have to worry about going to a city and meeting somebody from the church and like something weird happening. Like, that's unwanted. We might eat 500 milligrams each and fucking get weird that way, but fucking that's about it.
Yeah. You went to Vegas and saw Freddie, didn't you?
Yeah, man. I went out to Vegas. Shout out Freddie. Shout out Lizzie. Great people, man. And yeah, me and my pops were out there, and we met up with them, and we went out for some food, or some Argentinian food, I believe. And we did the podcast out there on the patio of the restaurant. And like we never met before, but we talked like we did his podcast when I was quite a bit younger and all that stuff. But it was really cool. And honestly, I got to tell you, that's one of my favorite things about podcasting in general, and just about like this community, is that you get to travel in almost every city. There's going to be somebody from that community. It goes out to the Netherlands. It goes out to all these places. So it's just a beautiful thing that's been created, and it's almost become bigger than any podcast, if that makes any sense. It's sort of become its own community in that way.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that. It has really become its own community, its own kind of family, and a great network. Because, like you said, it's like we're already pre-approved to, to link up and meet each other. You know that when you go meet these people, it's not going to be something fucky.
Exactly, dude. That's the thing. And I also love that in like the church, like Rogan. Well, I guess the church community is a lot smaller. So I guess the Rogan community is a lot more mainstream, but people, the bad ones are weeded out. The bad people are weeded out. The people who cause trouble, it seems to happen quick. So there's also that aspect to it too. Where are you located, by the way?
I'm in Virginia on the East Coast. Where are you at?
I'm out here in Edmonton, Canada. So Western Canada.
Okay. That's north of Washington, right? Get out of here.
Yeah, because I'm an hour flight from Vancouver, BC, and then you're right next to Colorado, Washington, all that stuff, like right at the border type of thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you don't really have like a thick Canadian accent, or at least what
No,
is typically thought of as a Canadian accent.
yeah, honestly, man, I don't really. I was talking about this with my friend yesterday, so it's kind of funny, and he's the same way. We were talking about how we don't really fall in with that typical stereotype of Canadians. But I would say a very large percent of the population does, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's just interesting because there's such a small distinction. I can't put my finger on what it is, but like I was watching Jeff Ross's live where he was insta roasting people, and there was a lot of people from
Yeah.
like Manitoba and different parts of Canada, and they sounded so Canadian. I was like, they sound Canadian to me. So I was like,
Right.
I definitely understand the stereotype. Like it does exist.
Yeah. No, I kind of feel the same way about where I'm from because I went to high school with people and they talk like this, Daytona 500, NASCAR, put my tobacco in my lip. Like, I'm like, dude, we grew up 5 miles from each other. Why do you sound like that?
Right.
You know what
Same
I mean?
areas, but such a difference.
Yeah. So I kind of relate to that too, Cassius. I feel like I don't fit in around where I'm from. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not a country boy. I'm not a redneck.
No, that totally makes sense, and it's weird. Like when I have gone to the States, and I've had very limited experiences there, and also like I feel like Vegas isn't a great representation of the rest of the states, at least from where how I see it, because I feel like it's almost its own universe in a way. Like things are very different in Vegas, in terms of everybody being friendly, and it's such an international city. I just think that there's qualities that it's unique to just there. But at least even in Florida, like I felt at home, man. Like I was like, I feel like this is the kind of stuff that I'm rocking with. But I got obviously love for my home country, and it's a beautiful country. And I'll always live here in some way, shape, or form. So
I believe it is true about Vegas that because of the international kind of city that it is, because of the party lifestyle, that it is an
Mhm.
anomaly in that way, and that people are probably much friendlier and stuff because it's a tourist town. You want people to come back, so the economy of your town is good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good thing, and that's what makes it what it is, and it makes it such a welcoming place. It's almost hard not to feel at home there if you like it at all because there's something just for everybody. But at that same note, that's why I'm cautious of basing how I fit in the States based off how I fit in Vegas, because again, it's hard not to fit in Vegas if you have any remotely popular interests.
Right. It's kind of like you and Freddie were talking about when you guys were talking about doing stand up and not letting them know that it's your first time doing
Hmm.
stand up because then it's like they're going to give you that bias.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's what I did.
it's like you don't want to base your experience visiting the USA on that Las Vegas bias. You know what I mean?
It's
Does that
like
make sense?
basing, yeah, well, yeah, it's like if you go in front of 200 people and they say, okay, everybody, this is his first time doing stand up. You're not going to base your judgment on how friendly audiences are based on that, because that's a completely false thing to base it
Yeah.
on in a way. So it's elevated. It's more catered to everyone. But yeah, so that's why I'm definitely curious to see LA and New York, because that's back to back what I'm going to do as soon as it's safe and legal, of course.
So are you planning on making those trips once this coronavirus mess kind of lifts?
Yeah, man, I was planning on doing it before, and it just sort of got kiboshed. I was probably going to be out there around this period of time. Like I started putting a couple things in place, like about 4 or 5 months ago, I put like this microphone here and like some gear on a payment plan. And I said, I want to get my gear going, generate some content with it. And then I want to go on a trip to LA. So yeah, so I mean, hey, I'm still doing the first part of it. We're all just doing what we can, I guess. But yeah, definitely the next step is LA, meet with some connections out there. And also just get my bearings. Like, I think it's going to help because I have a lot of different things that I'm interested in and in terms of the entertainment industry. So I think it's going to help narrow down on maybe what I want to focus on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think having that eclectic taste and that wide variety, that wide range will help you, man, for sure. Because it doesn't,
Yeah,
you're not pigeonholing yourself. You know what I mean?
it's true. And it's difficult. It's difficult in a place like where I'm at because, it's a big sports city. We have a lot going on, but it's not a huge, um, I'm going to say independent art city because Edmonton has a huge comedy scene and a huge music scene, but you don't just see photographers everywhere taking pictures and you don't see people doing podcasts and shoots. When people see that type of stuff, independent shoots, it's sort of looked at weird. And even in a place like Vancouver, still in Canada, it opens up so much. Everywhere there's photographers, there's people, doing their videos, doing GoPro edits, and just when people are more susceptible to what you're doing, and there's like more of a palette to draw from, I think it makes that easier. When you're the only person doing some stuff, it's almost hard to get any gauge of what it's like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yep, 100%, 100%. Because you're a one horse town, kind of in that sense. And it's like, how do
Yeah,
you know how good that horse is if there's no other horses to compare it to?
that's the thing, man. It's like I was like basically the only known podcast in my city for a very long time. And like now there's some podcasts that are starting to come up, like shout out Oilers Nation, shout out all these great shows that are finding their niche. But it's like we're definitely at a point where we're still creating our scenes in a lot of different ways. And I
Right.
like that. And I'm very proud and happy to be involved in that. But at the same time, I'm sort of looking to jump into a scene that's sort of a little more established and see what I can do from there.
Yeah, I've been kind of feeling that same way because our comedy scene around here has been growing, and I really like the family aspect that we've been kind of building. But at the same time, it's like I'm putting too much energy into building something when it's like I need to go work on something that's already established. Just go fall in place somewhere. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And that's the thing. You got to decide what you want to do. Like you look at some of the Canadian artists in music, they've some of them decided to like be known for the city that they're from and to sort of build that up and then create a scene in their city. And then others chose to just become involved to whatever degree they could in what was going on. And I think there's huge merit to both because when you get into that established scene, it brings just as big of a shine onto your country anyway. It's like he made it
Right.
to LA from where he's at or whatever.
Right. And it's not like it's easy to get into an established scene. It's just you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to have the stress of trying to build a scene.
Yeah, build a scene and then say, okay, now I'm going to go out and do these shows, and now I'm going to go do this and that. It alleviates a lot of the pressure, and it's not taking the easy way out because there's no easy way out in the entertainment business.
No, yeah,
The
exactly,
easy way out
exactly.
is to quit. So,
Right,
you know,
right.
yeah.
100%. Where did you go when you went to Florida?
I was in the hood outside of Miami unintentionally because I really had no knowledge of the area. And because I went for a music festival. So I basically said, okay, I'm going to get a place near the music festival, which was at Hard Rock Stadium, not knowing that the surrounding area was probably the worst area in Miami. Like just every window boarded up, people asking me if I'm selling crack, like, that type of shit. So I didn't even really get to see Miami proper. But when I say I fit in, like I was walking around there in sunglasses, and I think people just assume that I live there. And I wasn't getting looked at crazy, like you must be lost or you're not from around here. No one was looking at me, no one's bothering me. I even got some good comments, some encouraging stuff. So it was interesting for sure, but it definitely taught me like if you're gonna go to a city like Miami, don't do it on the cheap side. Fucking this is
Yeah.
like because I've done trips to like BC and Vancouver for music festivals where I'm spending $70 for a place for the night and it's totally fine. But there's no cockroaches and there's nothing and there's no, crime rates or things like that. So it's a totally different beast. But that was actually 2 years ago today that I was there on that
Okay.
trip. Yeah, come to think of it. It's pretty funny.
So, did you get any good interviews while you were down there at that festival?
Actually, that was a really eye-opening festival for me because at that point I had barely even started doing video stuff. I was just putting out the audio podcast and the odd in-person interview, but I wasn't doing like webcam stuff like this or anything. And my show was a lot smaller than it is now. And I seem to have a fatality that if I show up to this festival, that's the only missing key to getting interviews with Travis Scott, J. Cole, and all these people. I was a pretty young guy still. I still am, but I showed up there and the few interviews that I did have didn't go through. And that's when I learned the scale of a festival like this and how many moving parts there are and how a music festival like that is a completely different beast than anything else. And I also learned that in a place like Miami, like there's Miami and Florida photographers in general that work for years to get at an event like that, and they build a community, and that's the community that I'm not involved in. So I basically showed up to a random place and I was expecting them to roll out the red carpet for some kid from Canada with a handheld mic and no cameraman. It's like I must have been on crack or something. That's what you could say. But that's what I learned is that like no one's going to roll out the red carpet for you. I could be in LA at the Grammys and I'd still get no interviews because I haven't worked hard enough yet.
Right. You got to make it happen. You got to get out there and force the issue a little bit.
And that's the harsh reality. And, it was a great trip. I mean, I went with a friend from Canada that we'd only met once at a party, and then we ended up sharing a house over in Miami and going to this festival. And, it was like a movie-esque story and weekend, but not podcast-wise. And that's when I learned, like, you can't just be walking up to major artists and like, not only are you not owed anything from anybody, especially major artists, especially when they're here to make $1 million to do an hour of performing, not to meet you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the craziest shit that I learned, man. It was like, and that's when I realized the importance and the value of sharing the stories of your local community and stuff like that, man. It's like I can't be skipping out on stuff like that and then expecting to get the red carpet out.
Right. It was definitely a humbling experience for you, it sounds like.
Which I so needed because like after like basically accomplishing, and I'll be honest, like I'll be completely candid, you're getting the fucking unshaven candid interview here. I'm telling you. But like after the Gene Simmons interview at like 18, that was essentially my life goal to that point. And I feel like it just like it made me feel like I could interview anybody. And I really needed to be humbled in that way because then I learned like Gene Simmons in 2018 is not Gene Simmons in 1978 in terms of star power. That's not going to translate to people who are at that level now. It's just there were so many things that I had to learn, and I learned it the hard way through that by maybe getting a little carried away with myself at that point.
Right. That had to be such a surreal moment for you, though. I mean, that's one of your biggest idols. That's your favorite band. What was that like getting to interview Gene Simmons?
It was, yeah, surreal is the only word. It was something like my classmates would laugh at me when I said I was going to meet Kiss in the 5th grade type thing, and like it was just always my goal. And I had been rejected a lot of times because they'd come to town a lot of times and I could never land the interview. But yeah, and it was surreal too, the fact that the Expo Center, the rule for all media was we don't care who you're with. We don't care if you're Ryan Seacrest. There's no interviews with Gene Simmons, period. That was the rule. And Gene overrode that rule in order to give me access. And basically they just had to put their hands up and say, if Gene wants it, we have to do it. So the whole thing was just like, it was a very emotional experience for me in a lot of ways, man.
Yeah, it's like how do you keep it together in that moment when you're actually doing it? You know what I mean?
I barely did that one. Like even watching it now, like, and see, just because like when you watch yourself, I'm sure when you do stand up, like when you watch yourself, it's a completely different thing than what other people are seeing. And I've gotten a lot of comments on how I'm not nervous in that interview, but I was like barely conscious. Like I was near like passing the fuck out. Like I'm this close to Gene Simmons and I'm just like forgetting all my questions and shit. Like I was fucking like a kid in that interview. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was just some crazy stuff, man, for sure.
After watching after going back and looking through your backlog of people that you've interviewed and stuff, though, now it's got to be you could interview Obama or Donald Trump, and I feel like it wouldn't be anything to you. You've interviewed so many people, so many names.
I mean,
you've had like all of Death Squad on your podcast. You had I can never think of his actual name, but the actor who plays Leahy.
John Dunsworth.
You've had Ace Frehley, Gene Simmons, like. You've been on the Church What's Happening Now. I think I already named like all of Death Squad. You've had all those guys involved. So you met them working the door at a comedy club in Edmonton?
No, I sort of like the Death Squad guys. Joey, I mean, I met Joey online because I was reaching out to him. I was an OG Joey guy, you know, and I would think I was the only young buck in the group. Like now he's got people of all age ranges, but like I think it was like 30, 40-year-olds and me in his audience at that time.
Right.
I was on like the first 5 episodes of the church, like with the Stick'em days when he was using those. Like I don't even think that website exists anymore for live streaming, you know. And but yeah, I was just vocal with Joey, and I was just straight up, and I told him what I wanted, and I think, you know, that's all he was looking for. He was just looking for someone to be straight up, and he respected it. You know, it was just such a weird thing, even just thinking back on it, because like as you get older, you have more awareness, and I think your respect grows for people. And you know, at least my respect has grown for like people giving me their time, like what that actually means.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a kid, you don't really understand that. Like to get a phone call from someone like Joey Diaz, like there's a lot of people trying to get that phone call, and I appreciated it then. But as the days go on, I appreciate it more and more, you know. And like those guys like Redman, like always favoriting when he saw it on Twitter, and they were always just super supportive because I guess they just didn't see a reason not to be, you know. And I always will respect that, man. Like they didn't have to do that, you know what I mean? I could have never talked to any of them, you know.
Yeah, but then you ended up talking to all of them.
Yeah.
How old were you when you when you interviewed the first one?
That was be 12 years old with Joey. And yeah, man. It was because I dropped him a message. He had first seen one of my YouTube videos actually, and he put it up on Twitter. And like I swear he was high as hell on edibles or something. He was watching me do the cinnamon challenge when I was a young kid, because that's what you did. You jumped on trends back then on YouTube. And he was like, "This fucking kid's hilarious." And I was just like, "Thanks, Uncle Joey. Like, you know, what's up?" And then I got, you know, some people talking to me. So then I shot him a message with my phone number at the end, just talking about the podcast. And he actually called me. And yeah, that's when we talked on the phone and we set it up. And yeah, great interview, you know. So that led to Redman, Eddie Bravo, Duncan Trussell, Ari Shafir. And yeah, it was weird. You know, these were all the guys like listening to all the time, man. I was a huge fan of those guys. Right. I still am. These guys are fucking great,
yeah.
You know, I think Duncan was one of the best ones, like just, and seeing how far he's come now. That's the craziest thing too, is that these guys were famous back then to a degree, but seeing how far guys like Tom Segura have come in the past 10 years, like from doing a podcast in a loft to riding on private jets and having multiple shows on his channel, and all this stuff has just been, it's so crazy, man. And that's why I think we're seeing such like a connection right now between the whole church family, and like all those guys are trying to do podcasts and reunite, is because after 10 years of something, you start to look back and be like, this is really amazing. The whole thing is just incredible.
Yeah. Well, also I feel like people like you and me and Freddie, and that kind of synergy that's going on with the church and that network, that we have the same potential to be like a Death Squad. You know what I mean? Why not? Why not us?
Hell yeah, man. I mean, that's the thing.
Like Rogan and Joey and all those guys and Segura, they're not going to be around forever. You know, so somebody's got to take the reins eventually.
And that's the thing. It starts a second wave. You know, it starts. It's just like you look at anything, you know, you look at certain styles of movies, you look at certain styles of music, it starts a second wave. And then the people who are inspired by those original OGs, they carry it on, you know. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to watch. Like and it's not, you know, that's the thing that separates, I think, shows like you mentioned, you know, like the guys in the church who post their shows, like they're quality shows, like yourself, like Freddie, you know, I could think of a couple more. Yes, anybody can start a podcast, but these are quality shows. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's
anybody can start. anybody can start a podcast, but to actually like have good production, have good questions, stimulating conversations. You know what I mean? You can do a podcast all day, but if you're not having a stimulating conversation, nobody's going to watch. Nobody's going to stay tuned.
And if it sounds like you're at the bottom of a well, nobody's going to stay tuned.
Yeah, right.
I mean, yet we've managed to avoid that with all these shows. And I think it's just because, you know, we're inspired by the best, you know, Rogan, Corolla, Diaz. These guys are really the best at what they do. Yeah, it's a weird thought to think that those shows won't always be there because they've been there for so damn long, man.
Yeah. How long have you been doing stand-up now, Cassius?
Stand-up. I've only been doing it for a couple months, man. I can't believe I picked the worst time to start right before the coronavirus. But
as soon as you start picking up momentum, it stops.
Yeah, man. But I literally got I went on stage 2 times so far. And in those months, I've just been working on my material and really writing jokes. So I'm really hungry to get back on stage after this because I've been writing jokes in this quarantine. And the thing about the quarantine, and I don't know how if you've been feeling this as well, it's been giving me a lot of material personally.
Yeah. It's well, because it gives you so much time to write. But
yeah.
and everybody's going stir crazy, you know what I mean? I can't look at my phone or what I can't fuck off but for so many hours of the day before I start to like beat myself up. So then it comes time to write, you know what I mean? And when you're on lockdown for so many hours, you have that much more time to do it. But I've been trying to like not write just quarantine jokes or like coronavirus jokes. I feel like that's hacky. Like to have, you know, everybody's going to come out and do like 5 minutes about the COVID. I don't want to do that.
No, it's totally true. It's like having your 5 minutes about Trump after the election. It's sort of just like, are we really going to go there right now? And yeah, it's true. And, you know, I have a couple of jokes about it, but definitely I've been trying to avoid it. And I feel like it's just, and I don't think it's directly related to the situation, but I've just been coming up with a lot of stuff. I think it's just because, like you say, about the time, you know, we have the time to think about this stuff and like music ideas. I've been picking up the guitar more than ever. Yeah, time, man. Like it's, but between the podcasting and comedy, which one would you say like takes up the most of your time?
It's hard to say really, because I do put in a lot on the back end of the podcast. You know what I mean? I don't just show up, I make the flyers, I'll sit there and kind of research and study who's on my show and go over like kind of like my reading and stuff for that week of what I want to talk about or where my head's going to be at. But shit, I do all that stuff with comedy too. I've been hosting all the local shows, so I make the flyers, I do so there a lot of effort goes into both of them. I think comedy is more satisfying after the final product, you know what I mean? It's more fulfilling, but I love doing the podcast too, and I find it totally necessary, like a good tool, a good accent for comedy.
That's the thing. It ties in so well to if you're trying to really have any other aspect to your creativity, I guess is a way to put it, like be it music or stand up especially. Do you find that a lot of people who come to see you, is it related to your podcast? Like are the people who are listening to the podcast showing up?
Well, for me, you know, I'm backwards from you. The podcast for me comes second. I started doing comedy in 2018 and started the podcast just last year. But I definitely think that promoting it on the shows, or at least saying, hey, we're doing a comedy show this week, or hey, we're live streaming improv, I'm sure it helps. But for the most part, I think people coming to my shows are just people that want to get out and laugh.
Right. I don't and then you can be like, no, go ahead.
I don't think it's necessarily a byproduct of the podcast.
Right. So then you said you make flyers. So is it like, come see me and then maybe I'll tell them about the podcast? Is that how it kind of works, or?
I try not to push the podcast on the shows. Okay. You know what I mean? I don't want to make it all about me. I've been egotistical in the past. I've been super, you know, promote myself in the church type guy. And I've recently stopped doing that. You know what I mean? If other people want to share my stuff in the church, that's fine. If another comic is going to be on my podcast and he wants to tell people to watch it, that's fine. But I don't want to take away from especially since I'm the host of the show too. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
feel like that's ugly. I don't want to take away from the other comedians' time and focus off them by plugging my podcast.
Right. I feel you. Yeah. Because I've seen, like, we talked, I think, about working at a comedy club. Like, I've seen people do the complete opposite, like dropping a flyer on every table with their website and their social media. And I do think when you get to a certain level with it, it gets to be like, what are we doing here? Is this a money farm? Like, are you trying to circle your viewers around, like, from your show to your podcast? Like, what are you trying to do here exactly?
Right.
It's like people have come, they've paid for a show, let them enjoy their show, and then maybe that's it. I do like that philosophy because I feel like there's a real level of integrity to that. Like, just
Right.
they've come for the art, I will give them the art, and there's no catch.
Right. It's not a bait and switch.
Yeah, and I do like that. And but again, like, I guess that's something I've learned through working at a club and like selling even merch for some comedians and stuff is there's levels to it, and like there's definitely a way to do it. Like, if you're gonna do it, if you're going to sell a t-shirt for a reasonable price, I think that's cool. Something like that. When it gets to the bumper stickers and the mugs and the incense and the condoms and the fucking action figures, I think that's when it gets to be ridiculous.
Right.
But people still buy it.
Yeah. I think that if you're like a feature, you know what I mean, or a headliner, and it's a classic 3-person show, a host, a feature, a headliner, right? And you come up and do your time, I think it's totally okay for, say, Moshe Kasher or Joey Diaz or someone like that of that caliber to go, hey, by the way, check out my podcast. But
Right.
for me as the host of local open mics to be like, hey, check out my podcast is taking away from somebody else. And I don't want to do
Right.
that.
That makes sense. So you'll like announce them, be like, this person's from such and such and such. Yeah. I guess
Right.
if you're a host,
And if they have a podcast, I'll pump their podcast.
yeah. Now that's totally fair. Yeah. And it's funny because, like, I think a guy like Joey, like, I don't think he does any, and I've never seen him live, but like, I don't think he would really even need to plug his podcast because I think most of the people are there for his podcast. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the beauty of it too.
Right. No,
Yeah, man.
100%. 100%.
Have you got to see Joey live?
Yeah. I got to see him live in Cleveland in October of 2018. I met Joey.
Oh man, how was that?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't get to talk to him for as long as you did and do a podcast with him for anything, but he recognized me from the church group. He knew who I was, and he kind of chatted me up a little bit. And basically, him and George Perez told me to get my ass out to the Comedy Store.
Nice.
Because
Wow.
George opened for him that weekend, and actually hung out with George a little bit that weekend too. So
That's really cool.
yeah. So when the show was over, Joey already knew who we were and shit because George had told him about us tripping acid at the motel the night before and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
So Joey knew exactly who we were. Yeah.
He was ready.
Yeah, he was ready, man.
That's funny.
God, he's such a loving guy, man. He's just got
He's a cool
so much
dude.
love. Oh yeah. He's got so much love. Can you hear my dog? He's being crazy right now.
No, it's cool, man. We're doing the home podcast experience. People know the deal.
Right.
I got 4, dude. I'm lucky they aren't making a racket. But man, I was about to go. Hopefully, I wanted to go see Joey because I was so in love with Vegas. I was ready to go right back and see Joey at Treasure Island, but it didn't work out. Now I'm kind of regretting it because that was like one of the last things he did really lately.
So who are some of your favorite comedians that you've seen live?
Man, I think the number one that I saw in terms of crowd reaction was Miss Pat.
Oh yeah. She's got such an energy about her.
Yeah. Oh, she's hilarious. And she actually helped me get my job at the comedy club. Because after I did the podcast with her, the club manager was there, and I mentioned that I lost my job because Target in Canada closed. So that was my first job at the time. I was like a 14, 15-year-old kid. And I was like, yeah, Target's closed. I'm out of a job. And he said, we need a new door guy. And Miss Pat was like, you could do that. You could seat people. You could give them a menu. She's like, she was trying to hype me up a little bit in front of the manager. And she helped me get the job. So I really appreciated that. So that night I went to see her, and this was the first time I ever literally saw someone fall to the ground laughing. I mean, this couple, like, she was telling this joke. I don't even know if I should repeat it. Let me, it's not my joke. She was trying to say a joke about how she can't sleep with Asian men because the Asian man she was with's penis was so small, she thought he was a female. Let's put it that way. And the second she hit that punchline, I literally watched this couple get up, and like the guy was trying to hold himself up laughing, and they fell to the ground laughing. I thought that was a fable. Like I never thought you go to a comedy club and see people rolling on the floor. Like who the fuck? So that, and honestly, other than that, man, like Andrew Santino, TJ Miller,
Okay.
TJ Miller, fucking hilarious, man. Like he takes the microphone and he just throws it on the ground. He's just standing there looking at the crowd for like 2 minutes, and everybody's just silent looking at him, and he just screams, "I just realized I don't have to use this microphone," and everybody just hears him perfectly, and the fucking room just died, man. I was just like, who comes up with this shit? It's like some of these guys, man, it's insane.
That's funny. That's funny. How long did you work that gig for?
That was about 2.5 years. I was at the comedy club. Yeah, it was. It just ran its course, but it was a really good opportunity because basically I came up with a contract with the club to where the headliners would do an interview with me every week. So
Oh,
yeah, so it was in their contract that they had to do the radio and then they had to do my show, and that was what they signed to do the shit. So I had like Dom Herrera, like Ari Shafir, like you know Tom Rhodes, just people like that, and just week after week after week get to sit down face to face and just pick their brains about comedy. So, and some of the times they let me stay clocked in and do it. So it was my first time ever like getting paid to do my broadcasting.
that's
So
awesome, man.
yeah, man. So I'm always grateful to them for having me do that job. Like I just had lunch with Noah from there, one of the owners of the franchise over in Vancouver. And like we were both door guys, and now he's one of the owners and he's running clubs, and like it's just so always love for them for sure, man.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. And it's now that you're doing comedy, it's cool that you have all that network kind of behind you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it wasn't
yeah,
built off doing comedy, so your relationship with them is kind of outside of that.
yeah, that's the thing, man. And I never want to be the guy when it comes to like even asking for advice. I never want to be the kid in the message request, like, hey, I want to start stand-up comedy, any advice? Or the kid saying, hey, I want to do my first song, any advice? Because then you're one out of 5,000 people sending that same message. Well, they don't know you. Why would they want to help you? If you sit down and you have a conversation, an interview with somebody, then you know them in a different context, and then it can evolve from there if you guys hit it off. It's a natural
Right.
thing. If you don't hit it off, it's not going to evolve. But yeah, man, like getting to go back and replay some of this advice from like these comedians when I'm asking them like, hey, what should I do when I first do this and shit? That shit's valuable. That's true. It's like a good archive.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
I
man.
got like 5 minutes, Cassius. I got to run another podcast. I got a late start on
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
That's my fault. Is there anything that you want to ask me? I feel like I hijacked this whole Swapcast template.
No, man. Please, I got long answers, dude. So it's not difficult for it to get hijacked by me. Trust me. But I'm just curious about how you're in terms of being a comedian. Like, how are you adapting to not being on stage for so long? And how do you think this is going to change the landscape of comedy? That's what I'm curious about from comics.
As far as adapting, there was definitely a time there for a little bit where I was like, am I even funny anymore? Like,
Mm.
am I still funny? Like, am I still gonna be able to deliver my jokes and kind of have my voice when I get back on stage?
Yeah.
And then I had a moment where it kind of clicked and I was like, all right, I still kind of got it. I cracked a joke at the grocery store or something. And I was like, all right, I still got it. It's riding a bike. Now what I have to do is put in the work behind it, write the jokes and do that. I'm
Yeah.
lucky because the other comedians in my scene were very much like a family. We work together a lot, and we've been doing improv. We've been coming to the podcast studio. Actually, I'm in my room right now, but we've been going to the actual studio, which is like 5 steps away from this room, and we'll play improv games, kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway? And we've been live streaming that. I feel that's such a good tool for helping improve your stand-up.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, for me, stand-up is more important than improv, but
Hmm.
they do go together a little bit. They do go hand in hand a little bit. And I know that practicing this improv is going to help evolve and level up my comedy in the long run.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that, and that's been really fun. So I'm lucky personally that I have that group around me and the resources to be able to do that, because not everybody else does.
Yeah, man, that's badass. No, definitely. I think the improv is a really important component for artists, for comedians to think about. Because like even looking, I think we mentioned the Jeff Ross thing earlier. Like seeing him, live on there roasting people. Like he's still working on his roast skills and he's still trying to do it. But he's not doing it in person. So that's super cool that you guys are doing that, man. So is that like once a week type of thing, or how often is that?
Yeah, we've been doing it once a week. So hopefully that once a week keeps me fresh enough so that when the time goes to do comedy again, I'll still have it. But shit,
Exactly.
I was hosting 3 open mics a week and doing paid gigs on the weekends. So I was really excited about all that stage time that I was getting, because all our favorite comedians, everyone that you've had on the podcast, they'll tell you that you have to have stage time. You got to get the reps. You got to get the reps. You got to get the reps. And
That's all it comes down to, bro.
yeah, and I was finally getting that, like I said, 3 or 4 times a week, and then now it's all taken, and I'm like, damn it, I was just getting that that really good momentum, and now it's gone.
It's
So
crazy. So how
yeah,
close are you guys to reopening?
I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
know. I think I think they're close to going back to like the 10 people maximum. It's like
Mm.
a 10 max in bars and restaurants.
Okay.
But you got to figure when they do that, even if I was like, hey, I'll host an open mic for free, they're not going to want to do that. I'd rather have my restaurant filled up with 10 patrons than
Right.
7 comedians that are only buying Sprite.
Right.
And then you got to think, even once it opens back up for a while, a lot of these places aren't going to have an entertainment budget for a while
Yeah.
because they haven't been doing anything.
A lot of places won't even be able to open if you really think. That's the thing. Like we're talking about reopening when I'm not going to say 90%, a large percent of the businesses are nearly bankrupt or out of business. I mean, it's
Yeah.
insane. But, at least here we've started a reopening plan. It's in phases. So,
Okay.
like we can go out to parks now. Parks are open, stuff like that, which I thought they always were. But, so we're starting to phase it in. So I'm hoping that we can get back to normal as safely and quickly as possible and like get this shit rolling, man. Because I miss going out to shows. I miss stand up. I miss all this stuff. And I know it's not worth people's lives. So hopefully we can fucking manage this soon.
Yeah. In the meantime, though, I think it's good for a young comedian, someone who hasn't been doing it as long like yourself, to just have that time to write.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of on a stalemate right now. Just write, 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 write.
Hmm.
Because we're all in the same place. I said on Facebook a couple weeks ago, I'm finally in the same place as my favorite comedians, home. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
just,
Seriously. We're all at the base level now. So, and that's what I love about this. There's no excuses after this. If you're
yeah,
fucking not out there and getting your shit going, that's on you. Because
yep.
everybody has the hunger who wants to do it. They have the hunger and they're ready to go. So now it's going to be interesting to see how this goes.
Who was actually working hard enough? Who was disciplined? Who wants it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who
Who's
wants
going to
it?
make it through the quarantine and have their love of art and creativity intact? That's sort of the challenge right now, and it
Yep.
is challenging.
Yep. It is. It is. But this was great talking to you, Cassius, man. Like I said, I got another podcast I gotta
Yeah,
do.
man.
Do you want to? We got to do this again though, sometime without a time limit.
Hell yeah, man. This is yeah. I'm down to come on anytime, and Swapcast, whatever you want to do. If I'm ever out in Virginia, I'll definitely shoot you a message.
Yeah, same. If I'm
Uh,
ever up in Canada.
yeah, man. But Scott, thank you so much, brother. Definitely, I appreciate your time, man.
Thank you. Shit, I appreciate your time, Cassius. You're the legend, dude, not me. You're the prodigy, man.
Hey, man. I
12,
appreciate
12
you,
years
bro.
old. 12 years old. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
It's all love, bro. I
Making me
appreciate you,
feel
man.
lazy over here.
My
You have
man.
a good day, brother, man.
Stay safe, bro.
Peace. Stop recording. End live stream. End